If you would like to support the podcast and get some extra content while you're there, head on over to patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast and sign up. From the rewatch to the Q&A, we will have loads of content every week. So sign up, patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast. And now, here's the podcast.
Graeme McDonald is an idiot.
Sean Sheehan of SevereMMA.com. He even has the audacity to call himself the quote-unquote pod god.
This is Severe MMA.
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 The Severe MMA podcast is finally here.
Welcome to the Severe MMA podcast. Here's your host, Sean Sheehan.
Welcome everybody. It's episode 257 of the Severe MMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, joined today by the William Regal of Irish mixed martial arts media, Graeme McDonald, as we talk about a big week coming up in the world of mixed martial arts. Massive UFC 273 card coming up next week. We had a very big week in the world of UK and Irish MMA with two massive Cage Warriors cards, so we will review them and anything else that maybe pops up that we can speak about along the way. But before we do that, we must tell you that spring cleaning, have you started it yet? The carpets need cleaning, the drapes need dusting, and your lawn needs mowing. Spring has sprung, and the global leaders in below the waist grooming have the best tools for cleaning aisle 5 in your pants. Time to clear out your winter bush and join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the code SEVEREMMA. Manscaped has the full package you need for spring cleaning this year. The Performance Package 4.0 is the only tool you need to keep your boys looking and smelling like fresh tulips that your partner would want. To start off your spring cleaning, use the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. Waterproof. It has a light. No need to worry about watering the the grass with this tool. And as well, that light in the shower is absolutely fantastic. Clear your holes and smell the spring air with the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer. That has that magnificent proprietary skin safe technology which helps to prevent nicks, snags and tugs in those delicate holes. Then you can have the crop preserver even, and the crop reviver. That crop preserver is fantastic. It's an anti-chafing ball deodorant, and the reviver is a spray-on toner for your balls. Keep them boys from sticking to your leg and smelling fresh like flowers. And finish off your grooming routine with the Plow 2.0, the perfect razor for the finest shave in your face. Oh, this is the first I'm hearing about that. Manscaped sent me out one of them. I'm going to need one of them, because if you're using the Lawnmower 4.0 on your balls and your face, you're doing it wrong, boys, which is fair. The start of spring also marks the start of Testicular Cancer Awareness Month in April. Manscaped has partnered with the Testicular Cancer Society to bring awareness to testicular cancer, men's health, and early cancer detection. Manscaped is committed to raising awareness for the most common form of cancer in men aged 15 to 35 and giving support for fighters, survivors, and families impacted by testicular cancer as part of the We Save Balls initiative. So smell as fresh and clean as you can this spring, and check yourself before you wreck yourself. Call to action for everyone now is 20% off and free shipping with that code SEVEREMMA at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping using the code SEVEREMMA at manscaped.com. It's time to throw out your old hygiene habits and upgrade your life with our friends over at Manscaped. Graeme, oh my God! I know.
Before you go on, what's William Regal up to these days?
He's actually. Do you know what? I'm gone very bad for thinking up of names for you these days. I literally just spring it on myself every time. He actually signed for AEW there a couple of weeks ago. So he was running NXT, the WWE development school, for ages, but that thing is after changing massively. So now he's on with AEW, and he's running a faction with Daniel Bryan and John Moxley. Previously Dean Ambrose, people might know him as.
Is Daniel Bryan not retired? No, he didn't have some big retirement thing, no?
He did, but, well, he did retire. They made him retire.
Hashtag wrestling retirement.
No, to be fair, he had concussion issues, and it was 2 years before he came back. He had to do loads of cryotherapy and loads of different things before he got cleared. clear.
Sure, don't they all?
They do, I suppose. Yeah, it's a tough sport.
Sure, last time I saw him, he was being humiliated, William Regal, being humiliated by kissing Vince's ass on TV.
Yeah, that was a long time ago now.
That's true.
A long time ago. WrestleMania, actually, we're recording this Saturday night. WrestleMania, right after we finished recording, so looking forward to it.
How exciting that.
How exciting,
really.
Can't wait. Stone Cold Steve Austin is back. Sure.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's cool. Is he wrestling or is he too old for that?
I don't know yet. No, it's kind of like, is he going to wrestle or is he going to just do a few stunners and a few lads? I'm not sure.
Probably better he slags a few people off, does a few stunners and pours a few beers over his head.
Yeah, sure. What more do you want? That's what we all want. That's what we all want. Come here, I think we'll start with UFC 273 here because I need to cool down after that Mad Cage Warriors card we just watched. I need to let it rest in my head for a little bit, before we get into that. And we started with Irish MMA last week, so let's start with Irish MMA again, this week and talk about Ian Garry versus Darian Weeks on a mad stacked card. It feels like Ian Garry's career so far in the UFC has been on these really, really good cards. And it's, it's a smart thing to do to, getting around, when all the media is around, he was on the Usman versus Covington card, the one in MSG back in, November, I think it was. And he's on this one now, which is a massive one as well with 2 title fights in it and pretty close to where he's living over in the US now. Very, very smart. I was talking to Ian yesterday, actually. That interview will be out in Sherdog during the week. And honestly, do you know what? He seems back to himself. For the last while, obviously, he had to split up with Team KF, and then he was moving to America, and he was only a couple of weeks nearly in his gym before his last fight. But this time, he's been settled. He's been there, a good 6 months now, at least, at this stage. And he feels settled into his gym. Himself and Jason Jackson seem to be like, they could be starting in the Buddy movie pretty soon. And
who's a bigger fan of Jason Jackson, Ian Garry or Sean Sheehan?
Me, I think.
He's coming for your boy.
He is. He actually brought him over before.
Taking everything you worked for.
He brought him over before we did the interview, and he's like, "Oh, Jason, this guy loves you," and I was pure embarrassed. I was like, he was there in Sanford MMA when I interviewed him, so I was like, "Oh, hello, Jason, how are you?" So I was DMing him back and forth. You might see him in an interview pretty soon, but I love a bit of Jason Jackson. But with that said, Ian's training with him. He's training with Gilbert Burns. He said Usman was on the mats not too long ago as well. And Vicente Luque has a fight coming up next week as well. Training with all these guys, it can only be good for you.
Even guys we probably haven't heard of are probably really good Logan guys Storley in the gym over there. Yeah.
How much are you anticipating this fight? I feel like for a lot of people, this fight has maybe come up on him a little bit because, I think it's smart, but I don't think Ian has been putting himself out there as much as maybe you would expect. Let's say Paddy Pimblett. We're seeing him everywhere. We're seeing him in Cage Warriors and Barstool. We're seeing him all over the place. Whereas Ian Garry's it feels like he's concentrated on the fighting for the last 6 months, which is a good thing. What do you think?
Yeah, it seems like he's in the trenches working away. All the videos you see of him are heading to the gym or from the gym or talking about the gym. He seems to be, really into it, really well adjusted to the new setup over in Sanford. Obviously, you mentioned there, we talked about it on the podcast even before his UFC debut, how hard it is to move to a new country and, move away from your team and not the most amicable circumstances, a pretty big blow up and a split, and you have to move over, and you're making a UFC debut, which is already a nerve-wracking thing. We've seen the UFC nerves many a times from many a fighter, and I think Ian did suffer a little bit from all of these things. He didn't start off the best in the first minute or so of his UFC debut, like we're used to seeing him throughout his career in Cage Warriors, and obviously it all went to plan in the end, and it was a beautiful knockout and all that. But I think I'll be expecting him to look more comfortable in there against Darian Weeks, and I think it's a nice matchup for him to go in there and show all the improvements that he's been working on in the gym. And obviously he's a very well-rounded fighter. We've seen it in Cage Warriors and stuff, but obviously there's always so much room to improve for somebody that young in the sport and that young in age as well. And training with these new training, you listed off guys there like that can only make you better, and I'm sure it has, and I see him coming out here and probably making the statement that many people probably thought he was going to make in the first UFC fight. Even though he did come out there and knock the guy out really impressively, I think there was some more opposition coming his way than maybe most people expected. But I expect him to go out in this one and really kind of show what he's made of and show how good he is everywhere and just dominate.
Yeah, I asked him about that last fight, and I just asked, what do you think of your performance without saying anything? And he said, he basically said it was terrible, you know, which is a big thing for him to say, because I remember we talked about one of his performances before, and one of the two of us kind of said, oh, he got hit a little, he needs to cut that out or whatever, and he kind of got mad at it, not mad, but, you know, just kind of taking him, he's like, hi, what are you saying? That was, but whatever. But this time he was very critical of his own performance, which is a good thing to see. Because, like, I went back and watched that fight, and I was like, that's not the real Ian Garry in there, like, you know, and he, you know, as you said, the UFC jitters and all that, he said that himself, and he said it in other interviews as well, that, he, you know, you see Bruce Buffer there, you see, this is my dream, I've made it, and next thing, you're 30 seconds later, and there's this guy, Jordan Williams, who's fought a couple of times in the UFC, coming out with no jitters, punching you in the fucking face, and it takes maybe 10 of those shots to realise, oh shit, I'm actually in a real life fight here, I'm not in my dream. So I think, you know, hopefully that's out the window now and we can move on to what we see here. So what we have here at Darian Weeks is a very interesting matchup. Like, if people haven't maybe watched much of Darian Weeks, a very good wrestler. He fought Bryan on short notice in his last fight, and he lost that fight, but it wasn't a blowaway by any means. Took Bryan down in the second round. He's the type of fighter who, like, throws long kicks up through the middle because he's usually smaller than his opponents, and he will be a lot smaller than Ian Garry. So he uses that to kind of, to keep the distance and to cut that lint that usually he would lose a fight from. So Garry will have to get through that first of all without being taken down at the same time. So look, it's an interesting matchup. I don't think Weeks is the fastest in the world. Good counter striker, but I think Garry will be fast enough. And this is a very different matchup from the Jordan Williams fight. Because if you remember the Jordan Williams fight, you know, as I said, Jordan hit him 10 times in the face very early in that fight. And Ian won by letting Jordan come onto him, slipping and countering. He won't do that against Darian Weeks. Darian Weeks is the type of guy you'll have to attack because he wants the counter. Now, and if you do attack him, he will get the counter and he will look for the counter anyway, but he won't come out and attack you in that sort of a way. He won't be coming forward throwing 3 or 4 shots. So it's a very, very different matchup for Ian Garry here, and I think it's probably a good job by the matchmakers giving him someone else, giving him someone different to see how he looks against him while not moving him forward too far. So, you know, Bryan is a way bigger quality of opponent than anyone Ian's ever faced. So Darian Weeks is a little bit ahead of him in that, obviously having lost that fight. But it'll be a good yardstick, I think, for where Ian Garry is in his career and what he looks like against someone like Darian Weeks. I don't know how much you have you watched of him, Graeme? What do you think of the matchup for Ian?
The thing about Darian Weeks is looking at his record, you know, 5-1, he looks kind of inexperienced, but if you look to his amateur record, he's 15-3 in that. You know, he's fought in the IMAFs, he's fought locally extensively, so he's a lot more experienced than maybe he'd look on record. But, you know, I think the quality of opponents that he's beaten at pro record don't stack up to the quality of opponents that Ian Garry was facing in Cage Warriors and things like that. But, you know, Bryan has been around the UFC for a long time. He's a difficult guy to come in against short notice again. So maybe you can kind of excuse that one a little bit. And I think he may be a little more dangerous than 5-1 would suggest. But I think Ian, you know, we've been watching him for a long time. He's really talented. He seems to pick things up really quickly between fights. He might fight a couple months later and have added new wrinkles to his game over the years. And being over there in Sanford, I expect to see a load of new things here. I expect to see a really, really impressive Ian Garry here, and I think he's going to be too much for Darian here. But you know, with Darian as well, he could improve as well. You know, obviously, as I mentioned, coming in on short notice is never easy, but I think this is a big ask for him, and I think it's good matchmaking for Ian Garry. Yeah, I would tend to agree. Like you never really know at this stage of their careers. Like Ian could come out looking like a totally different fighter, or Darian Weeks could come out looking like a totally different fighter as well. And it's a very interesting one to see, and another step for Ian Garry. You know, with the world opening up now, you know, they were back in London a couple of weeks ago. We really could see them back in Ireland very, very soon. We'll talk about the new Irish contingent coming through in Cage Warriors, and obviously we have Paul Hughes in Cage Warriors. Dean Barry's making his UFC debut very soon. Obviously Conor will be coming back. I don't know if he'll be fighting in Ireland or not, but you know, it's an interesting time. Before the pandemic started, they were coming to Ireland. You know, they had the date booked in and everything, and it didn't end up happening.
I wonder will they come back pretty soon. And if Ian Garry wins here, maybe he's calling for the UFC Dublin, maybe Dean Barry wins, and maybe, there's a few more. It's something that could happen down the line. So this is a big fight for Ian. And if he moves upwards in this, you could have a big spot in that card for him. So a very, very important big fight for him here. 9-5 defeat square. Looking forward to seeing that. I mentioned earlier on one of his teammates, Gilbert Burns. He's fighting Khamzat Chimaev. And before we get to the title fights, I think we have to talk about that one. That's a very, very interesting fight. And, I have a lot of previews to record and talk about this fight this week. And honestly, I don't think I'll probably say the same thing twice in either of them, because I don't know how this fight is going to go. Like, Chimaev's wrestling is unbelievably strong, and he can probably take anyone in the world down, unless your name maybe is Khabib Nurmagomedov or maybe Kamaru Usman or someone like that. But Gilbert Burns' bottom game is so good. His jiu-jitsu is so good. Do you want to take Gilbert Burns down? And on the feet, and I'll throw this over to you, and I want to get your take on it, because I was kind of talking through the fight to myself earlier on and thinking, like, Chimaev striking, especially in that Mearshart fight, obviously, where he knocked him out. We haven't seen too much of Chimaev striking in the UFC. We've seen a bit. He got a big knockout outside the UFC as well. But you would think a lot of that good striking was brought about by the fear of the takedown. Like, will Gilbert Burns fear the takedown as much as other people, knowing how good he is on the ground and knowing that most people don't want to take him down? Therefore, will that open up his hands and make it a more even striking matchup? Could that be a key here? Could Gilbert Burns' ability or his want to open up and strike more with Chimaev actually be a big key to this fight?
It's really hard to know with Chimaev, as you say, how good his striking actually is. We've seen in little spurts, maybe because, as you said, because the threat of the takedown or him faking the takedown and coming over with a big overhand. But Gilbert Burns, is his jiu-jitsu good enough to pull off a submission against Chimaev from the bottom? It could be, but I don't think so. But Chimaev is young in his career. He has questions to answer as well. We're kind of talking as if he's kind of shown it all when he really hasn't. Like, this is a huge step up in competition for him. He's beaten good guys, but this is a former contender. This is a much more well-rounded guy than he's fought before. Gilbert Burns isn't just a grappler like he used to be. He's a well-rounded guy now. He can strike. He's shown that. I think the days of these guys coming in and being the Verdooms where you can't really go to the ground with them, or they're just going to tap you in a few seconds, they're gone. I think Chimaev is probably on a level where he's rolled with all these black belts, and he knows how to keep his position, and maybe he won't be as dominant with the ground and pound. Maybe he won't open up as much. He won't posture up as much to give the space to Burns. But yeah, I think, especially over 3 rounds, I think Chimaev will be able to stay safe and, chip away with his ground and pound. It might not be as vicious as we've seen in the past, but as the fight goes on and as he kind of takes the cardio out of Gilbert Burns from top position, if he can get the takedowns, which I expect him to be able to, then I think maybe the ground and pound will increase, and maybe he'll get a TKO or a dominant decision victory.
Look, it's one of those fights where we're going to learn something, isn't it? Like, we're going to learn. Yeah. This
is assuming, a lot of things about Chimaev that we're a lot of people seem to be assuming, and I seem to be falling into the same, same trap. But yeah,
we will know by Sunday. We will know by next Sunday, because Chimaev will either come out and he'll take Gilbert Burns down and he'll fucking destroy him, and we'll all be saying, look, you have to put him in there with Kamaru Usman next, or else he'll come out there, Gilbert Burns will stop the takedown and he'll blast him out of there. Or it's a very even fight, and both things could be said, like, he's very, very good, he's at that level, but maybe he's not as destructive as we thought he could be. Whatever happens, we're going to learn something about Chimaev. We're going to learn something about that division. Look, about Gilbert Burns, I don't know, it's hard. Maybe we'll learn that Gilbert Burns isn't in the position he once was at towards the very top. If he wins, he could absolutely be back there again very, very shortly, because that kind of the roundabout at the top of the welterweight division seems to be going around very, very quickly, considering Masvidal and Colby both have gotten rematches already. So it's an interesting fight. It's one of those ones where you always mention the word, Graeme, jeopardy. This one has more jeopardy than most fights we're going to see. We'll obviously talk about the two main events, which have the most jeopardy you can have with the belts. But this one, it means so much. It means, one of the best up-and-comers in the world will either be the next title challenger, the next guy, or he won't be. And I'm really looking forward to
Or he
that.
might be, but he might need more time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's it. There's whatever way it goes, it's interesting. It's the type of fight you want to see. You know, it's the type of fight. We used to always talk before about, you know, one guy in the way up, one guy in the way down, and they meet in the middle. Now, this isn't necessarily that. I don't think Gilbert Burns is gone or he's useless if he loses. And the same for Chimaev, you know. But it's a different sort of fight. It's a really, really fun fight and an intriguing matchup, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. Look, I think the same as you. I think Chimaev will probably win, but I don't know. I feel like if this fight stays on the feet for a while, we will learn something else about Chimaev, whether he's elite on the feet as well. But we've seen that in the past. You know, I don't want to go full DC talking about Mark Casey here, because we have seen him knock lads spark out. But elite on the feet against a guy who's not afraid of the takedown in certain ways anyway. But yeah, can't wait for that fight. It's going to be unreal. The undercard is pretty good too. Julio Arce starts off the card against Daniel Santos. Piedra Rodriguez fighting Kay Hansen. Anthony Hernandez is fighting Josh Frimd. Alexei Olnik is a new opponent. He's fighting Jared Vandera. He was supposed to fight Ilir Latifi a couple of weeks ago. Denny was supposed to fight him as well on this card, but that fight's after falling out now. The fight between Chris Curtis and Dricus du Plessis fell out, as did the fight between Kelvin Gastelum and Nasruddin Imavov. Then Gastelum was supposed to fight du Plessis. Now Gastelum has fallen out of that fight against du Plessis as well, so I don't know if they're going to get du Plessis back on the card. I don't think so, I'd say, after this, so that's unfortunate that those fights are off. Marco Madsen as well, massive fight for him, 11-0, the former Olympic wrestler. He's fighting Vince Pichel, and he's another guy, Graeme. He needs to get moving in that division, doesn't he? We talked about Alex Pereira a couple of weeks ago. Now he's fighting Sean Strickland, and that's a massive fight. I think Marco Madsen's in a similar type of place here in this division. At his age, 11-0 in his MMA career, went through Cage Warriors, has gone through the who's who so far in kind of the climbing through of the UFC lightweight division. At 37 years of age, he's beaten Clay Guida, beaten Austin Hubbard. If he can beat Vince Pichel, I think he's in line for a big matchup. So this is a big fight for Marco Madsen here, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of a must win for him at 37. Obviously he's only 11-0, and you're thinking, he could, he's probably still working on his skills, but maybe that's incorrect as well, because as we look at athletes, they, compared to 20, 30 years ago, they're lasting a lot longer in the sport. We see, soccer, Tom Brady, people like that, still going.
Cristiano Ronaldo, is that the one you're thinking of there? Is it?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not going so well for him, but it's going okay, The odd game, it's okay. If you wrap him in cotton wool for 2 weeks around each game, it'd be grand. But yeah, I think with Madsen, he does have to beat Pichel, and he probably has to beat him comfortably if he's ever going to get to the top. It's a really difficult division to be coming into. Like, this 155-pound division for the last 5 or 10 years has been an absolute killer's row, and having really dominant wrestling has been a really good recipe for success in the past. But I think with how well-rounded the top guys are these days, especially in the lightweight division, you're going to need a lot more than that. So probably either way, it's probably a mountain too high to climb for Madsen. But if he's going to make it happen, he's got to go out there and smash Vince Pichel and call somebody, cut the right promo.
Yeah, I think he needs some improvements as well too, because I don't think he's a finished article as an MMA fighter yet. The rest of them alone, I know he's 11-0, and that sounds a bit harsh, but the rest of them alone is not going to see him through, I don't think. So I'd be interested to see how he fights. Vince Pichel is a good test, a very, very good fighter, been around for a while, so an interesting fight there. Mickey Gall, who's also fighting in Stanford.
Vince Pichel has only 2 losses. That's mental. I thought he had like 5 or 6. I don't know why.
I used to always mix up Vince Pichel with did he fight that lad? Your man, do you remember that big tall lad that got knocked out a couple of times? He was it doesn't matter anyway. It's just someone I mixed him up with. But yeah, he lost to Rustam Kavalov back in 2012. He lost to Gregor Gillespie in 2018. You know, so yeah,
they're not bad losses in fairness.
Yeah, to be fair, no, he hasn't. So interesting.
And even on the Ultimate Fighter, his loss was to Ally Quinta and exhibition and bout there.
Yeah. So interesting. Big fight for both of them. As I mentioned, Mickey Gall trying out of Sanford MMA now. He's fighting Mike Mallet. Great name, Mike Mallet. Aspen Ladd is fighting Raquel Pennington. She was due to fight Irina Aldana in probably a number one contender fight in that division. So, look, big opportunity for Raquel Pennington to bounce back against Aspen Ladd, who probably would have had a title shot a while back, but 3 in a row now for Raquel Pennington after losing to Holly Holm, and obviously she lost to Manny Nunes in that title fight, and Jermaine Durandamy as well, whereas Aspen Ladd 9-2 now in her career, and lost to Arma Durant last time after beating Kunitskaya and losing that weird fight against Jermaine Durandamy with was it Herb Dean? It usually is Herb Dean. So big fight for both women in that division, honestly, there as well. So looking forward to seeing that. Jairzinho Rosenstruck against Tibora. The heavyweight division is moving a lot at the moment, so a big win there will put someone forward, because it feels like there's not an even number of heavyweights at the moment with, Jones and Stipe and Blades and, Derek Lewis and Tai Tuivasa and Aspinall and the rest as well. So a big win here, I think, especially for Rosenstruck. The UFC have liked to put him in big fights so far, and I think if he wins here, he'll be pushed towards there. Maybe the same could be said for Tybura. It's actually a good fight. I think that'll be a fun fight. And I think the same for Mackenzie Dern versus Tisha Torres. How do you think that fight will go?
That's a really difficult one to know how it's going to go.
I think the same.
Like, if it hits the ground, I think Tisha Torres will be very, very... Like, she's very good at following a game plan. I think her game plan will be to not engage or engage with extreme caution when hitting the ground. And if she does follow a really solid game plan, which she's known to do, she probably can win this decision 30-27 or 29-28. And she probably will do that, but she's got to watch out for Mackenzie Dern pulling guard, even jumping on her back, any kind of creating scrambles, things like that. But I'm sure she'll be drilling those things, and we've seen her in the past be able to execute game plans pretty well. So yeah, it's a hard one, but I'd probably just lean Torres. But yeah, if Mackenzie Dern managed to out-grapple her, I wouldn't be too surprised either.
It feels like Tisha Torres is a horrible matchup for Mackenzie Dern. Like, what do you want to do against the best female jiu-jitsu artist in the world? You want to run away from him, basically, and that's what Tisha Torres does in her fights. And I don't mean any disrespect by that now in any way. It's a good game plan if you can do it. Fight from the outside, hit and don't get hit. That's what prize fighting and that's what martial arts are all about. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The one factor I would say here is, as you said, if she can tie her up and get her down, you'd expect Mackenzie Dern to submit almost anyone. Although in recent fights, she hasn't been as maybe dominant or as confident in going for it immediately as maybe she should be. But I think the size difference here will be a big thing. Like, Mackenzie Dern in the past has struggled to get down to 115, although in the last while she hasn't. But she is a big woman for that division, whereas Tisha Torres, I think if they opened up a 115-pound division, she'd be there tomorrow without having to...
This is 115 pounds.
Sorry, 105-pound division, an atomweight division. I'm pretty sure... She's fought there before in Invicta, hasn't she? She would be anyway. So yeah, I think that might be the one difference. Like, if Dern can catch her, put her against the cage and drag her down, look, that's where she wins the fight. So that's the fight really in a nutshell. Although Dern hits hard as well. We've seen her hitting, landing a few shots in recent fights. Her striking was one of those ones where sometimes it looks good, and then sometimes you think, oh, well, maybe it doesn't look good actually after all in the next fight.
Well, if the threat of the takedown is there, she can probably work her hands a little bit better, and if she has some success with the hands, it'll also open up the takedowns. And she, as you said, she probably needs to be more aggressive about her grappling, even if it's not a perfect double leg. Yeah, if it's not a perfect double leg or a single leg, it doesn't matter. Just keep going, keep your opponents under pressure, make them know that, like, any momentary decision made badly here is going to end up with me in a really bad position here. And she probably needs to use her expertise in grappling as much more of an active threat than she has recently, like she used to do when she first kind of came to MMA. Yeah, 100%.
Myself and Ian did the what's the word I'm looking for? We went back and looked at Heist Gracie's career a couple of weeks ago, and like, looking at the way Heist Gracie engaged his jiu-jitsu, no, okay, he was engaging against people who didn't know how to fight MMA like people know how to fight MMA today, especially someone as high level as Tisha Torres. But I feel like people like Mackenzie Dern, or look, Mackenzie Dern is probably a bad example because everyone knows it's going to happen with her. But other people who fancy themselves on the ground to have an advantage there, I think engaging in a more like, in a pulling guard basically is what I'm saying, or getting to the ground no matter what position you want the fight to be in is something
Paul
that we...
Craig, like we talked about it. Yeah.
Exactly. He does it perfectly. We don't see that enough in MMA anymore. And I feel like we talked about jiu-jitsu not working in MMA, and you kind of said it there a little bit. But if you have a big advantage, it works great. Like, look at Habib versus Justin Gaethje. He's such an advantage in jiu-jitsu. He made him look like, me, grappling Andrew McGahan or something like that. And Mackenzie Dern can do that probably against a lot of people. Now, having said that, Tisha Torres is a very good grappler too. And, she's a karate stylist or whatever you want to call it, but she can grapple and she can wrestle too. So I don't think it'll be as easy as just taking her down and submitting her. Let me say that as well. But yeah, it's one of those, Mackenzie, she just needs to be a little bit smarter, I think. A little bit wise to the world maybe, and get the fight to the ground and get it there. So, and that could be said for a lot of people in MMA these days. So yeah, let's talk about the 2 title fights. I want to get your take on Chan Sung Jung, because I went back and I watched some of his fights, and I've always been a fan of Chan Sung Jung. I've never, lots of people, I know you are kind of a massive, massive fan of Chan Sung Jung, and I should be, like, he's one of those guys where I should be a massive, massive fan of him, but for whatever reason, I never really was. I don't know how to explain that. People are going, oh, you don't like Chan Sung Jung. I love him.
He's just always in exciting fights.
He is.
For 10 years.
How would you describe his style to people that haven't watched him? He hasn't fought that much over the last while as someone who's seen him for years.
He just goes for it, he's a well-rounded fighter. He's maybe not the best in anything, but he's a very good grappler. He's a pretty good striker. He'll pressure you, he'll try to push you back, but he's willing to throw down, and fans love that. Obviously, Dana White loves that. He was a WEC favorite kind of before he even went to the UFC, and we talked about it a few weeks ago for some reason. Dana White would wear like the Korean Zombie, was wearing the Korean Zombie t-shirt, and it was kind of like a cult thing. And, even when he was in fights like that he lost with Leonard Garcia, they were just absolute ridiculous back and forth fights, and people just kind of grew to love him through those kind of fights. And when he came to the UFC, he kind of continued, that Dustin Poirier fight where in the 4th round, he got the Darce choke after back and forth war, went in there against Aldo, was doing really well. His shoulder popped out. He's trying to pop it back in like a backpack. He's just a gamer, he's just willing to get in there and go balls to the wall, and he gets knocked out or you get knocked out. And we saw that with the elbow against Yair Rodriguez in the last second of the fight. Like he's fighting, he's willing to fight to the last second. He's willing to throw down, and I don't know why you don't love him. I don't know why anybody wouldn't love him.
It's not that I don't love him. It's not, I don't know. And maybe it's a point for another podcast. Having gone back and watched these fights and watching it from a very like fighter A versus fighter B position, I find it very hard to see him beating Volkanovski. Do you think he has a big chance against Volkanovski, or do you think it'll be Volkanovski's fight?
Yeah, no, I don't think he has much of a chance. Like, it's MMA, you have a chance, but Volkanovski's just on a different level. I think he doesn't get anywhere near. I think I say this the last time or the last few times, but we did Volkanovski previews, but he doesn't get anywhere near the respect he deserves. Like, you look at his last 5 fights, Chad Mendes put him away in the 2nd round. Jose Aldo beat him by decision. Holloway by decision twice. Bryan Ortega by decision. These are the best guys in the division, some of the best ever in the featherweight division. And even before that, he's beaten everybody. His one loss is 10 years ago to some guy called Corey Nelson. You can just completely write that off.
Welterweight, I believe, as well.
Yeah, at the start of his career at a completely different weight class. That's just complete write-off, in my opinion. So this guy deserves more respect than he gets, and he's looked absolutely brilliant in his recent fights and against really, really upper echelon, top, legendary, in some cases, competition. And, Korean Zombie's a gamer, as I said. He'll come there, put everything on the line, but he technically and, well-roundedness, he just isn't, he just isn't near Volkanovski. But, this is MMA. Anything can happen. Korean Zombie can put it on him, put the right combination together and put him away, it could happen, but I think it's very unlikely.
Do you think Volkanovski isn't appreciated because we find it harder to understand his game? Like, some people, it's very easy to understand how good
Francis
Francis
isn't these perfect, gifts we can put out of, oh, look how good he is, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more, you have to kind of watch him carefully to see how good he is.
That is one of those things that fighters like that, who it's weird because you see in boxing, someone like a Lomachenko, and I think he's probably the closest we have to Lomachenko, even though he's way better and hasn't lost the fights like Lomachenko has lost. And no disrespect, he's fighting good guys or whatever, but Volkanovski's basically undefeated in the sport, but yet we don't admire him in the same way, and I think that is a shame. And I know, you've made that point a couple of times, and we talked about it before on this podcast, but I do think it is a function of him being like almost too good for people to understand how good he is. And he's always outsized. He's I don't think he's the strongest fighter in the world. He isn't, he isn't the tallest. He maybe doesn't hit as hard as the other guys. Like against Aldo, he isn't as experienced. Against Holloway, he's not as experienced. And yet he still goes out and he beats all these guys and he wins against all of these guys. And, he almost got choked out by Brian Ortega. He pops back up and he wins the fight there as well. This guy is an elite fighter. It's a strange
one, though, isn't it? Because, Max Holloway will fight after losing twice to Volkanovski, and people will be like, oh, he's so good, he's brilliant, he's the best, blah, blah, blah. And then Volkanovski will fight and nobody cares. It's strange.
It is weird. And I think he's a funny personality and he's a good guy too and things. But I don't know, sometimes people, they don't catch the imagination or whatever. And it's very, very unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. But having said that, I think he wins this fight too, and I think he wins it. Look, he's won 4 fights in a row now by decision, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone out here and he's trying to get the finish. I could see him going for a few takedowns as well in this fight, and I know in my previews lately, everyone in the YouTube section over Sherdog and stuff is going like, "What you said everyone's going for takedowns?" I'm gone very mad for saying everyone's going for takedowns, but I don't know. I just feel like he might throw in a few, or even not. I think on the feet he's an elite fighter as well, and I think he'll win it. But I do think it'll be a fun fight though, because as you said, the Korean Zombie will bring it. He's not a guy who's going to stand out and get just boxed around. He will go out and he'll try to knock the head off Volkanovski, and if he can't, he can't. But I think that makes for a fun fight and a very, very good battle. Let's talk about Aljamain Sterling versus Petr Yan. Obviously, we saw about 3.5 rounds of that before, whatever it was. I went back and I watched it the other day, and look, it was a very interesting watch. Obviously, Aljamain Sterling's acting at the end of it was ridiculous. I can't remember what I said at the time, but I was bullshitting if I said he wasn't acting at the time anyway, because it was terrible. They acted, oh my god. And I'm sure he was hurt. And look, maybe it should have been stopped after like 30 seconds, and maybe he had to do it because he realised what had happened. But he was definitely hamming it up like fucking Mike Jackson against Kiefer Crosby that time. He'd go out in the neck brace.
If I remember correctly, the tide had badly turned against him, and it was his way out, and he took it with both hands.
Won the championship. Congratulations. But yeah, look, that fight, it was an interesting one because I almost called him Jackson there. I have Mike Jackson on the brain now. It's a different Mike Jackson than the CM Punk Mike Jackson. So Sterling was winning that fight for the first 2.5 minutes, but winning it in a way where, okay, he's winning. Yan lands one shot and it's like, oh shit, is he actually winning? Kind of a job. There's the big problem. Is it one shot and now he's not winning anymore? Yeah, no, that's the big problem for Sterling, because his game plan almost has to be a perfect one to win this fight, I think. And it also has to be one where you expend so much more energy than your opponent to land so many shots that might not even matter because he hits so much harder than you. It's an impossible game plan, right, to put out against someone as good as Petr Yan, but it's also a very, very downhearting game plan, if you get me, because you do it for 2-3 rounds and it goes well, and then your opponent starts landing a few big shots, and you're like, oh shit. Or even, you do it for 4 minutes of one round, he lands 2 or 3 massive shots, and you're thinking, oh, if you understand the criteria and all of that, you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, this is going to be an issue, or he hurts you very badly after you're dominating the fight. I don't think that Sterling can hurt Yan in the way that Yan can hurt Sterling. look, Sterling can knock him out, or he can land that big knee like he did against Marlon Moraes or whatever. Or was it Marlon Moraes landed knee on him? No, it was the other way around.
Moraes landed knee on him.
You know what I mean? And I feel like I've made that mistake somewhere before.
The Sandhagen one you're probably thinking of, where he came out like a house on fire and
I think he needs to do that.
Destroyed him on the feet and rear naked choked him.
That's what I think he needs to do. I think the best thing that Sterling should do here is go for the finish early. Like, go balls to the wall early, try to get him to the ground. Now, we've seen how difficult that is against Magomedov for 10 rounds. You know, Peter Yan's grappling ability is fantastic.
Do you not think he did try that the first time? Yeah.
I think he tried to put a 5-round, unbelievably high-paced game plan on him to win, while, you know, obviously looking for the finish throughout it. But I don't think that's a winnable fight for him. No, maybe I'm wrong. And look, these high level fights usually do go to decision, especially if it's a rematch. So, you know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like if it does go to a decision and it is one of those high level fights, Peter Yan will win that fight because of his ability to hit harder. Like, I just think he does. Like, do you think it's a winnable fight over 5 rounds for Sterling?
Like, I do think if it was over 3 rounds, it'd be a lot more winnable for him. But I do agree that he's going to have to do a lot more ground and pound wise than he did in the successful parts of the first fight with Yan. But in doing that, you give space to Yan, and he's a very hard man to hold down if you do get him down. And once he is up, I do think his punches they did seem to cause serious damage the first time to Sterling. They seemed to slow him down, and I see the rounds being close, when maybe Yan winning them razor close in the first couple, and then as the fight goes on, I see Yan taking over and dominating the last 3 rounds, or getting a TKO in the later rounds.
You're gonna knock out the last time, all right?
Yeah, sorry, gotta get that right.
I agree with you though. I think it's going to go the exact same way, but I'm interested to see what both guys are going to do differently, especially what Sterling is going to do differently. Like, it's a very interesting fight and a very interesting matchup again. I pick Sterling.
If he can get on his back early, you know. Yeah. There definitely is ways for Sterling to win here, but I wouldn't be too confident.
Jiu-jitsu is very, very good. If he can turn it into a jiu-jitsu matchup, he could, and it's early and dry, and he gets that back, he could be, look, just start pulling guard. You know, do that. Start pulling guard. Go for your sweep.
Jiu-jitsu doesn't work to now pulling guard in title fights. With the championship pull guard in his title fight.
Jiu-Jitsu. Andrew McGann won his match today, so Jiu-Jitsu is back.
We need to put the clips of you ranting about it. Jiu-Jitsu doesn't work next to this.
The most high-level fight in UFC history. Pull guard. That's the answer. Grand full guard. Jiu-Jitsu's coming back. Sure, Gary Tonin brought Jiu-Jitsu back there a few weeks ago. Remember that? Fair play to him. Well done. But yeah, so a massive card next week. Bellator, I can't believe Bellator put no card on this weekend. Again, they're doing this again. God almighty, Bellator. No.
We can just talk about the same. We just played a clip from the last 20 times.
They were giving out to me as well about saying, we already did the pre-booked one. Like, fuck off. It's like a Friday night as well. There's WrestleMania, okay, Saturday. Fair enough, you don't want to clash with that or whatever. But the Friday night, there was nothing on Friday night. Okay, Cage Warriors is on, but it's not going to clash with that. Oh, come on. Come on, Bellator. Let's get
Cage Warriors is over at what time?
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock, half 10.
Bare clash, you know, 1 or 2 fights, but not much. Yeah. Makes no difference. So.
Those prelims of like a 2-0 guy versus a 1-1 guy, nobody really cares anyway.
Yeah. Although, Shawnee Bellator, I'm previewing all the Bellator guys, now I care.
Shawnee
Bellator, that's what they're calling it. That's what the word in the street that they're calling me now, Shawnee Bellator. Shawnee prelims, they're calling me that. I love, like, I feel
Shawnee
like
post-limbs.
I feel like my knowledge of MMA has gone up massively in the last few months again, just because I have been actually looking at the prelims and things. I was just stopped concentrating on them for years, but now I have to look at them again because of Sherlock. And I kind of like it, to be honest. I have I'm back to like the old ways of knowing all. I remember we were above at the UFC Dublin, and there was like a quiz on or something, and the lads were like asking questions from the quiz that were impossible. I remember like, what are you talking about? They're like really easy questions. I feel like today I wouldn't be able to answer those questions as easy anymore, but I don't know.
Oh, it's way harder now. Yeah. There's 100 times more fights, and it's just impossible now.
Too much stuff, but I'm coming back. I'm getting back to it. Right, let's talk about Cage Warriors, Graeme. Do you know what? We'll start backwards here. I want to talk about Cage Warriors 136 first, because we've just watched that tonight, and what an insane card it was.
Yeah, fucking hell.
Every single fight ended inside the distance. Michael Chumku, who's a northern prospect out of Newcastle, who, if anyone listens to any of the podcasts we did with Jakey, has called him one of the guys you should be watching out for. He got a first round ground and pound TKO. Chasim Blair beat Ricky Moore in the first round as well. Jay Hanegas beat Kieran Lister. I think that was a bit of a shock in that one. He finished him in the third round there. Dylan Hazan looked good as well. This guy's a top prospect. I think what's Dylan Hazan now? 8-0, Graeme, I think he is in his career now. This guy is a real top prospect coming through, and he looked very good there. Look, I was reading out these results. I got to Manny Akpan, and we're going to have to stop at Manny Akpan because this guy is something special. He's one of those guys. He got taken down. He got beaten in the first couple of rounds, or most of them anyway. But knockout of the year. It has to be up there with a contender. Oh my God! If people haven't seen it, it was like a spinning capoeira kick that hit like the inside the guard of his opponent and knocked him out, like hit him in the ear, and he just face planted, and the referee let him get in a few shots. Some chin on Conor Hitchens, to be fair, to keep going after that. But one of the best KOs I've ever seen, honestly. It was brilliant. And Manny Akpan, I probably mentioned it last week, I mentioned it in the previews and stuff, this guy has that in his locker. This is the sort of fighter he is. He's so exciting, and if he can put a little bit more takedown defense with a little bit more wrestling, this guy is an elite fighter and someone we could be talking about in years to come as a top prospect in the world. And I truly believe that if he can make those improvements. If he can't, look, he'll just be another guy in the regional scene, unfortunately. But with that ability, God almighty, he's so good. What do you think of that knockout? Am I overplaying it too much?
Yeah. Well, the knockout was absolutely fantastic. You know, I don't know what kind of kick, some kind of capoeira wheel kick is. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was absolutely perfect. But, you know, in terms of how far he can go, it's really hard to know. You know, his last fight was 7-8 months ago when he lost by arm triangle choke in the first round in Cage Warriors. So there's definitely work to do there, but as you said, there's definitely a load of potential there. He beat Jack McGuire in his pro debut. That's a very good win. He beat Liam Malloy, you know, a guy who
he won tonight.
Just fought and looked really good tonight, you know, against Ben Reese. So it's early days for these guys, but there's definitely loads of potential there, and we've seen it before where these guys can build on the potential and close holes in their games and become really well-rounded and really dangerous, really kind of top prospects. And we've seen before where guys will go in and just not be able to close holes in their games, and there's a blueprint there to beat them, and they can't stop it. So, you know, people will be very wary of him now on the feet after seeing that. You know, that kind of knockout goes viral, and you know, it'll be on all the highlight reels, and people will be well aware of his striking prowess. So there'll be even more emphasis from his future opponents on trying to get him to the ground and get away from becoming highlight reeled. So, you know, we'll really see what he's made of in his next few fights. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of potential there in terms of the striking anyway.
Manny Akpan officially on Team Sheehan. So welcome.
There must be like 48 fighters on Team Sheehan at this stage.
Welcome, Manny Akpan. John, I want to see Ryan Shelley versus Manny Akpan next. Shelley's 4-0, fighting at 145 pounds. Manny Akpan, 4-1 now? Come on, Ian Dean. Let's do. Oh, what a fight that'd be. Oh my God. We'll talk more about Ryan Shelley in a second, but we'll run through the rest of this card because there was so many KOs and stuff. Alexei Mantekivi knocked out J. Anderson Castro, who put on a fantastic display in the first round. You know, that was a close round. He landed a lot of shots there. Training out of Dublin now as well, so good to see him doing well. But Mantekivi, I think Brad Warren.
He's been for years. I think he might even fought on Cage Contender. Did he?
I was looking at his record there. Yeah, he's fought a lot of rounds.
Yeah, he's been around for a long time, and he was looking good in the first round, as you said. But yeah, it didn't turn out too well in the end. He's always taken on the really tough guys. You know, he's lost to Pedro Carvalho, Sam Slater, Andreas Binder. You know, he's a guy who'll take on all comers, and when you do that, they can end like this, and unfortunately for him, it ended like this.
Yeah, he got caught with a big shot and then was like a standing target, not defending himself, got hit with a massive...
flew out as well, I believe, did it?
That's what Brad Wharton said on the commentary, and Jesus Christ. I hope it didn't, to be honest, but it looked like it did, and it seemed like the commentary was saying that as well. So a massive KO. And look, Mentakivi very good as well. He lost to Aries Mckeon recently, so that's a big comeback win for him there as well. And he puts him, back in touch in the top of that division where where there's no champion at the moment, and where they're looking for this fight was at 165. So I don't know, is he gone down or is he going to be at 170 going forward? But
Yeah, if you're giving out that crypto wallet they're shouting on about the whole time, like, Jesus Christ, you have some decision to make after all these fights.
I'd have to give it to Manny Akpan. Like, you'd have to give it to Manny Akpan. That's one of the greatest KOs I've ever seen. Like, the Mentakivi one was brilliant as well, to be fair. There's a lot of them, yeah. There is a lot of them. I actually missed the Miss Stanton fight. Did you see that was a front kick ground and pound, it says here?
Front kick ground and pound?
Yeah.
No, what?
I'm looking at MMA. Where am I looking at? MMAsucka.com. Got a bit of ground and pound, did he, Mick Stanton?
I was watching the fight, but I might have got distracted. I can't remember how the fight ended, to be honest.
I was cooking fish and chips. I was like,
It was a bit of a breakneck pace, and that fight was a bit of a slowdown one, but yeah. I'm trying to remember. I literally can't remember, even though I just watched it a couple hours ago.
We'll report it next week. That happens to me a lot. I have to keep notes now, or I'll forget everything. Luke Riley, Jack Elgin. The records of these two lads, I think both of them are only 2 or 3 fights into their career. I don't think I've ever seen a fight this high level of someone, 2 people so young in their career. This was a fantastic fight. I thought Elgin was going to finish him early. He was landing shot after shot after shot, but as Paddy Pimblett says, Scousers don't get knocked out, and Luke Riley kind of showed that to be true. He kept walking through it, landing his own shots as well, but the pressure was just too much in the end, and he landed too many shots and was able to get the finish. I hurt him late in round 2, and I think that kind of turned it. He got knocked down early in round 2, and then hurt him late in round 2 as well. But Jesus, it was a great fight. Really, really impressed with Riley, and he's a guy we definitely have to be keeping an eye on going forward. Aries Mckeon against Sam Spencer, and that was the latest finish, I think, probably on the card in the last 30 seconds. Mckeon took him down and dominated the first round. Spencer came back after a long time out of the cage and was winning the second round, landed some good shots, but Mckeon got the takedown again in the third round. Daniel Strauss's commentary at the end of this fight was unbelievable. He was saying he needs to move to the back, he needs to go for the finish, and he did exactly what he said in commentary, and it was absolutely brilliant. I love the way the Cage Warriors commentators just leave each other commentate as well. There's no interrupting, there's no bollocksing, there's no joking. If he's commentating on something and he's in a flow, just let him at it, and kind of, they let Daniel Strauss do the stuff on the ground, they let Dan Hardy do the stuff when it's standing up, and it works so well. It's so good, and this was... If you don't watch any Cage Warriors, go back and watch the last minute of McEwen versus Spencer and just listen to Dan Strauss's commentary and the way the fight finished. It was beautiful. Like, it was brilliant. It was lovely stuff.
But would you not prefer if Daniel Cormier was telling you how he would fight the fight? How he would fight the fight if he was fighting?
Ross McEwen, he has his back here, but I had a beautiful pickle salad this week here in New Orleans. It was the nicest pickle salad. Joe, you should have been. And then Joe. Fuck, prick. Anyway.
Okay, we can talk about this later when you've calmed down, John.
I got called out this week. Who said it? Oh, it was my guy Blake Harrison who said I called Daniel Cormier the biggest idiot in America, and I forgot I had said that. He was like, "Have you ever been in America?" I'm like, okay, yeah, fair enough, to be fair. But yeah, poor Daniel. I'm sure he's a lovely guy. Anyway, oh god, Adam Cullen. 14-second KO. This card was just insanity. What more can you say? Just landed a big shot, and where am I? I'm going to have to go to my notes here because I forget what happened. Cullen left hook KO. That was a beautiful shot, actually. Absolutely beautiful KO. Aaron Abbey, what a performance from Abbey here. A big underdog against Gerardo Fanny. He got on top of Fanny and he pounded that Fanny. Pounded him. And he ended up getting the rear naked choke in round 3. Have any notes on that? No, I just said AB dominated, which he really did. Fantastic performance from him. Very, very good. And in the title fight, in the main event, Johnny Milan got defeated even by Christian Leroy Duncan in a wonderful performance, a smart performance by Christian Leroy Duncan. Milan got on top in the first round. Duncan said very safe, let Milan kind of tire himself out, as the commentators very well
Didn't do anything, yeah.
Did nothing. It was one of those rounds, if the fighter got back to the feet and Christian Leroy Duncan had landed one shot, I think he would have won it, because Milan landed sweet fuck all.
Yeah, even if he had got a couple of crisp elbows or something in there from the bottom, he probably would have stolen it as well.
All Milan won in that round was a bit of tiredness, and you could see it in the second round. Very smart from Christian Leroy Duncan as well, and it's a point you always make. He tried a takedown at the start of the second round, and it got Milan thinking about it, and also got Milan on the back foot, not looking for his own takedowns. And then we had the most bizarre thing of all time with the contact lens, fell out from Johnny Milan in the middle of the fight. Mark Goddard's like, you're not supposed to have a contact lens.
Between rounds, in the first round and the second round, the whole time they were just trying to get the contact.
Lenses.
Yeah, there was no strategy.
No.
It's a world, not a quote, world title fight. You know what I mean? And they're worried about these fucking stupid contact lenses that you're not supposed to have anyway.
It felt like he's fought half round with one contact lens in, which I don't wear contact lenses, but I assume that is unbelievably tough to do, where you have two different fucking sights out of each eye. That must be so hard for him to do. Yeah, and then
but didn't Goddard say to him, you're not supposed to have them anyway when he was?
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's the commentate.
I don't know what that rule is. I'd love to know that rule. Maybe I'll ask someone. I'll reach out.
It sounds dangerous for the fighter to have a contact lens in their eye while they're being punched or potentially poked.
I remember we used to play indoor soccer before, myself and Patrick, and he got hit in the head with a ball once, and his contact lens was it Patrick? Was it someone did it? I think it was Patrick, yeah. And his contact lens got broke, and he had to fucking go to the hospital and everything, and get one of those things to open up your eye, and the doctor had to take it out. That's very dangerous. In a fight, they definitely shouldn't be wearing contact lenses like that. I think that's awful. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't really know much about contact lenses, but it just sounds like, it sounded from what Goddard said, and the commentator said that you're not supposed to have it, and his corner were kind of surrounding him, blocking off the view, which is always kind of suspicious as well.
Fair play to smart at the same
time. When you're distracted with a contact lens, when you're not really game planning, you're not really adjusting. It just seemed all a bit amateurish.
Yeah, and he was cut as well, or his nose is bleeding, and they should have been cleaning that up in between that round, and they just didn't. And then he went out and he got finished with a beautiful flying knee, 48 seconds into round 3. Christian Leroy Duncan, he was smart. He had a more sophisticated game plan than Johnny Milan. He took his time and he did exactly what he needed. He threw that crescent kick, or whatever you'd call it, the axe kick, just missed it, and then came in. Do you know what I love about this flying knee? The flying knee was actually off target, and he switched it in the air. If you go back and watch it, or watch it maybe even slow motion, it's like going to hit the shoulder, and he turns it in the air, and it hits him directly on the chin. Because I looked at the first.
I missed that.
It's funny, if you even pull it up on your phone maybe and see it. It's absolutely class. You can see it from the back. The back side, because I looked at the first, I was like, that hit his fucking shoulder. What? This is weird. He must have been tired or whatever. And then they showed the angle from the back where he kind of moves his left leg inwards and turns the knee in the air and hits it with it. Unbelievable high level stuff. I've rated Christian Leroy Duncan. I rate Johnny Milan a lot as well. I picked Johnny Milan to win this fight. He was plus 200, and I thought his wrestling would be enough, but Christian Leroy Duncan proved an awful lot in this fight. And in that middleweight division, that's not the best division in the world. What is he now? Is it 8-0 he is? Let me just check his record here. No, 6-0, sorry. Milan was 8-0 coming in. I think he's ready for the UFC. Honestly, I think he's ready for the UFC right now, and I think he'll cause problems to a lot of guys in the UFC.
He could be ready for the UFC now, but I think he shouldn't go to the UFC now.
Do you think
so? He should continue in Cage Warriors. He just won the belt. Maybe 2-3 defenses there. There's no rush. He's 26. He's early in his career. He has an extensive amateur career. As I talk about, that stands to you really, really well as you turn pro. But is there any real rush to get in there? Can he hone his skills? Can he not be taken down as easily as he was? Maybe if he gets taken down by somebody with really good top control and grappling and ground and pound, will it be a different story? It's better just develop your game for a couple more fights in Cage Wars, I reckon.
I would love to see him fight Matthias Frederick. I would love to see that. No, Matthias Frederick has been known, he hadn't been around for a while, but if they could put that fight together, that would be a massive fight. Let's hope to do that. But what a performance, great performance altogether by Christian Leroy Duncan, the new champion at middleweight in Cage Warriors. Let's talk about Cage Warriors 135. Another really good card. When I was watching it, I was like, oh Jesus, it can't get much better than this, but it did indeed. We'll group all the Irish fighters in a second. Just let me read out some of the results here. Andrew Sanchez defeated Conor Wilson 30 seconds into round one with Matthew Byfield. The Gallen fight was ruled a no contest due to the groin strike. That one was a bit weird. Federico Pasquale beat Paul McBain. O'Meal Brown got a really good KO against Dan Hepworth. Liam Gittins got a win as well over Edward Walls by a unanimous decision, as did Giuseppe Ruggieri over Dean Truman. Milan Addy as well got a good win, dominated Antonio Sheldon, and Matt Bonner got the rear naked choke against Hugo Pereira. We'll talk about the main event in a second, but let's talk about that now, and then we'll get to the Irish guys. Justin Berlin and Daniel Skibinski, this was another very, very good fight. Look, Burlinson, I thought, was struggling a bit early. Skibinski was landing the shots. He hurt him, hurt him a couple of times throughout it. But the longer the fight went, Burlinson kind of got into it. He started landing his shots. I think Skibinski got a little bit tired, going into, it was towards the end of the second round he got the finish.
Second round,
and it, the guillotine choke. It was one of those fights where any reservations you had about Burlinson were probably taken away by this fight a little bit, because it was a top-level opponent, a guy who came out and performed really well, put it on him, put him on the back foot, and made him come back and still win the fight. And I think if you're Justin Burlinson at this stage of your career, having just lost the fight to get into the UFC and the Dana White Contender Series, this is the sort of matchup you needed. Like, look at Aries Mckeon coming back, fighting Mantekivi. And, maybe Aries Mckeon can fight Justin Burlinson for the title next. I think that'd make a lot of sense as well. But a wonderful performance here, a great comeback from Justin Burlinson, and I think he proved an awful lot. Were you as impressed with his performance as I was?
Yeah, it's great to see him overcome adversity. It's an experienced guy, a guy who's beaten some good guys, and it looked like it was going against Burlinson, as you mentioned in the first round. It wasn't anything completely dominant, but he was eating shots, and it did look like he didn't really have the answers. But he made adjustments and got the finish, and it's kind of the perfect result, as you said, the perfect time in his career. He's 7-1. He needs these fights. These guys need these experiences early on in their career. They need to, have things to go back and work on, have things pointed out to them or exposed in fights for them to go back and work on. And, as you mentioned, there's some really good fights for him in Cage Warriors, and yeah, I think he's really is one to watch. People can write you off. Oh, he didn't make it in UFC Contender Series or whatever, but we've seen so many guys have way more losses, way more devastating or embarrassing or whatever losses, or one-sided losses in their careers, and come back. And MMA is not like boxing in that way, where there's a couple of losses and you're finished. That's been proven time and time again. And even for a guy like Skibinski, 7 losses on his record now, but he's still a really dangerous guy. He can cause a lot of trouble for a lot of guys, and himself even could end up in the UFC one day. So I think it's a good win over
fighting Mankivi. I think that'd be a good fight.
It's a good win, overcoming adversity against a good guy, and it's definitely he's definitely one to watch.
Indeed, 100%. Right, let's talk about the Irish guys. Do you know what? It'd be easiest for us to, I suppose, to talk about Adam Shelley and Ryan Shelley together, seeing as they're brothers and they train in the same gym and they have a similar sort of background coming from the Taekwondo realm.
Yeah, they're probably sick of that shit, aren't they?
They're probably sick of it, but I'm going to do it anyway because, and not in maybe the way you'd think. What I was really impressed with both of these guys is they were able to fight in like an anti-fighting game plan, based on what the opposition we're going to do. And what I mean by that is, okay, you have the reputation, you're these massive strikers who want to go out there and land shots. What's your opponent going to do against you? He's going to push you against the cage, try to take you down. They showed very good takedown defense, but also the ability to attack from those positions, whether it's against the cage, the ability to get an overhook, land on top. Like, what I love, I think it was the Ryan Shelley fight. Now, excuse me if I'm mistaken, but he got like the overhook at one stage and he just stepped over and kind of took the mount, or maybe it was half guard or something like that. That is brilliant. Like when you know you're going to be put in those positions, or someone's going to attempt to put you in those positions, what you should be doing, and Tom King, Chris Fields, Cathal Pendred, Aisling Daly, whoever else is in the gym teaching them these things, has schooled these guys unbelievably well, because they're doing the exact things they should do in that position. And you know what? They have 3, 4, 5, 6 fights, and their opponents in 2 years' time are going to be looking at this and go, well, if I put this guy against the cage, he's unbelievable takedown defense, and he's getting on top, and now he's very good ground and pound, he's good on top. Well, should I be doing that? And next thing, they're back to striking against lads. So it's that's the thing that stood out for me with both of them. Look, you could easily look at them and say, oh, they landed big strikes, and the finishes they got were big things. That for me was something that really stuck out. They look like well-schooled, well-organized fighters. And I'm sure having a lad like Cathal Pendred in the gym, who his game plan was to fight against fighters like this, push him against the cage, pull him down, be that fucking nightmare. Having someone like that, training with you or teaching you those positions to anti-fight that must be so handy. And they're very, very good at it. What, were you impressed with the two lads?
Yeah, very impressed. Yeah, as you mentioned, and Chris Fields mentioned on the Old Triangle interview we did with the lads on the podcast, he said about tape study and things like that, and about how they're very detailed about getting into what their opponents do and what their opponents like to do, and they don't like. Chris doesn't like when it's hard to find tape on opponents and things like that on the internet, or it's hard to find out about their styles. It kind of makes them uneasy, and it seems to really work for his guys and for his team. As you said, they seemed well schooled on everything that was going to happen, and they seemed one step ahead. Both of them. I know we're talking about them as if they're the same person again here, or the twins or something here. But both guys looked like they were a step ahead the whole way against their opponents. And Hooper is a 10 fight veteran against Shelley's third fight, and Ryan's fighting a less experienced guy, but similar experience to him, and they look streets ahead of their opponents in terms of development and where they are in their careers, even though they're at similar stages or behind in terms of experience, pro level.
Talking about being streets ahead of your opponent, I think James Sheehan was that against Karen Michalak. And I watched a bit of Michalak, and this guy's a good fighter. And James Sheehan made mincemeat of him. Like, we always knew James Sheehan was a good fighter, but I think people are going to have to kind of re-establish where he is in that division. He's one of those guys that's rising through that division. It's going to be a problem. Like, his only 2 losses are to Ian Garry and Matt Bonner, 2 former champions in cage warriors. One lad who, we talked about earlier, fighting in the UFC this weekend, and Matt Bonner got a win on this card as well, the other night. This guy is really, really good, and it's a great time for Team Rhino as well. The Miles Price is fighting in PFL coming up. Team Barry is fighting in PFL. Paul Redmond was doing some pajama fighting there a couple of weeks ago. I even saw Neil Seary was in the gym the other day. But the Abbott Bissets and all of that doing great work as well. It's a massive time for that gym, and Andy Ryan is doing great stuff. Again, a legend of Irish MMA, and it's great to see the lads doing well. And James Sheehan here, just phenomenal. That left hook and then the uppercut after it. What a shot, what power, a beautiful, beautiful shot. Michalak's not an easy guy to get out of there by any means, and James Sheehan made light work. Were you impressed as I was, Graeme? Very, very good performance by him.
Yeah, we talked about it before. We talked about it, I think, before every James Sheehan fight, that, the losses you have are at the start of his career were against really tough guys, like making your pro debut against Matthew Bonner and your third ever fight against Ian Garry in Cage Warriors is very difficult. Obviously, I seem to be saying it for all the guys coming through these days, but he has some really good wins at amateur as well. His amateur debut is against Kieran Clark, Marcin Dembele, he beaten there. He's fighting really good guys, and it really stands to him. He's kind of, maybe people tend to know of him as a bit of a grinder, or a bit of a wrestler in your face, kind of make it dirty. But he's shown again that he has more than that to his game, that he has crisp striking and that he can put people away with his strikes. And, he's got a knockout there. A couple of fights ago, he had a rear naked choke. His first pro win was a rear naked choke as well. So he's shown again that he's well rounded. I think people look at the record before his last couple of wins and say, he's 1-2 or he's 2-2. He may not be the best prospect to look out for, but now he's 4-2. He's put on 2 really good displays in a row, or 3 really good displays in a row on Cage Warriors, and even the Ian Garry decision in his Cage Warriors 101 was no disgrace at all. Going to a decision with Ian Garry in your third ever fight is no mean feat. So I think he's definitely flying under the radar a bit. He's shown that he has more to his game than maybe he's given credit for.
Yeah, the nickname as well, Jimbo Slice. I like it.
It seemed to be getting a bit of traction on social media.
Yeah,
people seem to be buying into it.
I'm all for the James no relation Sheehan, James no relation Sheehan. That'd be a great nickname. To be honest, I think more people.
You could just go James Sean Sheehan.
I couldn't. Yeah, but very good performance, a really, really good performance for him. And Caelan Loughran as well. I was very impressed with Caelan Loughran. Do you know what? I love Caelan Loughran's style because it's a style that I'm not sure is going to work long term, his striking style, but god damn it, it's fucking exciting and I love to watch it. And usually a lot of fighters these days, they're, especially at the lower weight classes, they're movement-based fighters, they're variation, they're going everywhere. It's all about footwork, it's all about speed and everything. Caelan Loughran stands in the middle of the fucking cage, puts his hands out and he says, come on, let's fucking fight. And that's exactly what he does,
He swings for the fences.
Just swing for the fences. But it's mad. I haven't seen a style like that in a long time. Then obviously he's not just that, he's a very, very good wrestler, strong on top. This guy's as strong as a fucking ox. And, put on a good performance, ended up getting the TKO in the midway point of the second round there. But I was very impressed. Obviously, when you have the record he has with, lads like Laurie Street and the record and all of that, people are going to ask questions. But now he's in Cage Warriors. And okay, the guy he fought was 1-0 in his career. So not the biggest opponent in the world. But we know if you're getting matched by Ian Dean, you're no bum, you're no Reece Street, you're no whatever it is. So that's a good win. We can count that as a win. Let's see what he does next. But I'm very impressed by Caelan Loughran. I thought that was a very good performance for him, and I'm looking forward to seeing where he goes next and see what he does. He's fighting out of Team Caban as well, obviously, over in Liverpool with Darren Till and all those good guys, Tom Aspinall and more. So,
and the guy he beat, had won 7 or 8 in a row there, including amateur, since he had a bit of a dodgy start to his amateur career, but since then had turned it around and won all the remaining fights in his amateur career and won his pro debut against Jack Clark by finishing the first round. So, Loughran went out there and made it look easy. Maybe he'll definitely run into more difficult guys as he goes, but he's shown that he can, he can stand there and bang. He's willing to trade. He's got big power. He's strong. He can wrestle. He can grapple. So, fighting Reece Street, people like that. I don't know what the motive or what the thinking behind that was, but forget about that and move on to the future, and the future looks bright for him.
Indeed, 100%. So I think we leave it there. I think we touched on everything from last week and looking forward to next week as well. Not much news in the world of mixed martial arts this week.
There's a bit of football going on there, a bit of soccer going on.
No, we leave that. Actually, what did you think of the whole Masvidal Colby Covington situation? Masvidal hitting him.
Oh yeah,
a beef restaurant, I believe.
Yeah, it's a bit. Yeah. I don't know. You just had a fight with him, and you couldn't put a hand on him really, and then you're going up sucker punching him. It's not a good look, really, is it?
No, it's not really. Yeah, that's the weirdest thing about it. Like, you had the opportunity to do it legally, and okay, Colby talks shit about his family and everything like that, but you're signing up to fight fucking Colby Covington, like.
You Colby Covington talk shit about everything, like,
exactly.
Jeez.
That doesn't make what Colby's saying right or anything like that either, but like, you're just.
But he's trying to annoy you, like, exactly. He's doing everything he can to try and annoy you, and you're just like showing him that you're annoying, that he's annoying.
Exactly, yeah. So, anyway, we will leave it at that. Open scoring, Graeme, for or against?
For against what?
Open scoring.
against.
Again. Oh, yeah, very good. Actually, before we go...
I used to think I'd be a for it, but then I just think, there'd just be so much stalling. It would just... some fighters in particular, I think, would just basically try to ride out the round, or just, sometimes where you see it like 20 seconds ago or 10 seconds ago when the clapper's gone and the guy just kind of circles away with his hands in the air. Yeah. We'd probably be getting a lot more of that kind of shit going on and just ruin. Like if it's a title fight and the guy's 3 rounds up and there's 2 rounds to go and the other guy doesn't want to fight, it'd just be like, oh Jesus.
Yeah, I actually, that isn't much of a discussion point that I use when I'm talking about open scoring. To be honest, I'm more about, like, I think open scoring definitely would make judging worse, and that's going to make things way worse for the fighters. Like, the whole thing about open scoring, be people wanting it, their whole argument is the fighters should know the score, which, Grant, no problem, have that argument, even though there's many other sports where the fighters know the score, including MMA. If you had open scoring for all but 2 seconds of the fight, but no one seems to have any brain on them and doesn't think about that, but it's going to harm the fighters if we have worse decisions because of open scoring. So, yeah, it's ridiculous. Also,
but why would the decisions be worse?
The decisions would be worse because the amount, like Matt Brown last week, right, against Bryan Barberena. The fight ended, the decision was read out, and the whole crowd went insane, roaring and shouting and putting, just going insane. Imagine if that was read out and there was 2 more rounds in that fight and the whole crowd is going insane. Do you not think that could distract the judge? Especially in a place like that where there was a couple of judges who were not as experienced as the likes of Sal Diamato or Chris Lee or Ben Cartledge or whoever it might be on that card. Do you think that wouldn't...
the judges are that weak, like, come on. Like,
we live in a world where we don't have loads and loads and loads of top level judges. We don't have that. And also, like, Capoza made the point now, and I 100% agree with it, but look what happened to Glory a couple of weeks ago, the big riot and everything like that. Like, if you're fighting, let's say Conor McGregor was fighting in Dublin and he was 4 rounds down, like, could you see people, it's read out, he's 4 rounds down, we can get this fight stopped, let's have a massive riot and get the fight, like...
England versus Ireland, you mean? It should be the go-to example of when we were about to kick their asses, about to take them down. Rumour has it was going to be at least 15-0 that night.
Exactly, yeah.
And they couldn't take it, and they destroyed the stadium, I suppose.
We should mention as well, it was a talking point this week, and we talked a lot about cage warriors, about Graeme Boylan and, him being a manager while running the cage warriors promotion.
Obviously, we talked about this for like 12. We talked about this longer than Severe May existed.
We have to be fair. We also talked about it like 3 or 4 months ago, and Ari was talking about it in his podcast this week, which he absolutely should, but he was saying like, oh, no one else is talking about it. And, like, we fucking talked about it loads. Like remember Artem like called it out and said something about it and we discussed it. So yeah, look, it's not good. It's not right. It shouldn't probably be happening, but who else would be running shows? If it wasn't a manager or if it wasn't a gym owner. Like, look here, like Andy Ryan has run shows, John Kavanagh has run shows, the lads running Cage Legacy are owning gyms and stuff. It's like, who's going to run them if they don't?
Yeah, I think the thing is though, I don't know, I didn't actually hear the full thing Ariel said, but I saw a little clip and he was saying about, for example, Paddy Pimblett's making way less money than nearly everybody, or everybody would agree that he deserves to make more money. He brings more eyes, more sales, more tickets, more everything. So because he's with Intensity Management and Graeme Boylan, they have like these deals with UFC and Fight Pass, and they want their next fighter to come through. Is he really pushing for the best possible deal? Is he going to rock the boat to try and get the best possible deal for his fighter when he has all these other things in the air? And we've talked about this in the past, and that's
definitely a better argument. That's a different sort of argument, but yeah, I would agree with that. Like, that's definitely we've talked about with Ali as well before. Like, is he going to?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. It's not just it's everywhere in MMA. MMA is this tiny, like, it's a big sport these days, but it's like still a tiny circle of people who are actually, the movers and shakers or whatever you want to call them, and there's a lot of conflicts of interests going on, and it doesn't make Graeme Boylan and Intensity and Cage Warrior and one correct, but there's nothing illegal going on here. There's no law against this or anything, so you can just do whatever the fuck you want. Basically,
that is true.
Deal with it, basically, is what his attitude is going to be towards it, and no matter what we think, it's kind of we can't really do much about it.
Yeah, that's a big.
We can
part
talk
of it
about it for years, but like you just get tired talking about the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, you do. Like, that is a big part of it as well. Like, they're trying to get MMA legalized or whatever in the UK, the same as we're trying to get it legalized here in Ireland, and maybe that's something in the future that they will have like they have in America, that we will have like they have in America, but at the moment they don't. So like it's a weird one, because like we all know it's wrong, we all know it shouldn't be happening, but we also all know that there's conflicts all over the fucking place. So like I don't know the solution to it. As well, the weird thing is, right, let's say you're Sean Sheehan management, right, and you have 20 fighters in the UFC and you have 20 more outside of the UFC. Like are you, and even if you don't have your own promotion, you're probably still going to do what Ariel is accusing Graeme Boylan of doing and take the money you're given for that fighter so you can get another fighter in afterwards, so you're not seen as someone that, you know, fights a hard bargain or whatever it might be. Now, there's other things you could add on top of that as well, but I feel like that's happening all over the place, and we see MMA managers the whole time getting criticised for it.
There's loads of politics going on in every deal, like, like, you know, oh, sign this deal, and a deal gets signed for, like, for example, like a Nate Diaz, and then all of a sudden his mate fucking Chris Avia's fighting in the UFC, you know?
Yeah.
There's deals going on all over the place. Like.
Yeah, to be fair. And also, every deal that's announced now is like, oh, this is the biggest deal in the history of the UFC. It's like, wait, is it? How do you know what the other deals are like? Like, Masvidal is like the third highest paid fighter in the history of the UFC. Like, you're getting paid more than either Brock Lesnar, John Jones, or Conor McGregor has gotten paid. Is that what you're trying to tell us here? I'm like, well, I'm a little bit of a skeptical snake about that one now. I'm not sure, but yeah. Anyway, it's something we have talked about in the past, and we will talk about again. But look, the one thing I would say with Cage Warriors, though, Ian Dean is there, and Ian Dean is matching these fights, and like Artem, I know, has made this point before, and we spoke about it, and I'd love to get examples like of where the intensity fighters are like getting easier fights and stuff, because if and now like the obviously ones that stick out are like Paddy Pimblett and others as well, and like Paddy lost a few fights in Cage Warriors. You know, he was in Cage Warriors probably 5 years longer than he wanted to be in Cage Warriors, because he was matched like that well.
Artem may have a point. I'd have to go back. Like, you know, you could present some data and maybe it will. But if you have a kind of star like Paddy Pimblett, even if he's not on your management books, if he's on your promotions books, you want this guy to be in fights that he can win. You know, you don't want this guy to lose 4 in a row and kind of kill off a star, even if he's signed with your rival management company. So, like, it's really difficult to know how much is motivated by what factors. You know, it's impossible to know.
Yeah, like
Graeme Boylan probably doesn't even fucking know.
Probably not, yeah. Like they did Ian Garry as well. Ian Garry's not signed to Graeme Boylan. He got put into a title fight. He got put into the tournament before that, and then he got signed by the UFC.
If he was with Intensity, would they be saying, "Oh, but it's only because maybe," but maybe not? Like it's really difficult to know. You'd really have to go back and analyze it properly.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
And even then, would you be able to decipher it? Like, probably is not. It just, you know, people fall out all the time? Who's available? There's coronavirus going on, all this shit going on, trying to get fights put together. You know, I doubt Ian Dean's thinking, oh, well, this guy's Intensity, I can't give him that matchup. No. You know what I mean? I really doubt that's going on.
That I would 100%, I would stake anything on that. 100%. I have the utmost respect for Ian Dean. I think it's a little bit disrespectful towards Ian Dean if you say the opposite of that, to be honest. And I don't think anyone should be disrespecting him, because he's, you know, he's for a lot of guys, you know, down through the years, his matchmaking and his intelligence has really put guys in a position to get to where they've got to. So I would, you know.
But if Graeme Boylan does come along and say, I want this matchup made, Ian Dean's an employee, probably, you know, has to make it.
Yeah, but I don't know. I that's not something, like, we talked about this before. I don't think that's something I've seen. That's not something I've noticed. Like, that's not, you know, the younger guys are getting matched up against younger guys. Like, Luke Riley today, right? I don't know if he signed with Intensity or not, but like, that guy got a tough matchup against another tough guy. Like, they're all getting matched with tough guys. It's happening. And okay, like, there's some 14-second knockouts, but sometimes
it's easy afterwards to say, oh, this was a mismatch, but like, people aren't, like, you rarely see people, say, you know, people say beforehand, oh, this is this ridiculous matchup, what's going on here.
Also, you see, like, look at Gerard Afeni. Okay, he lost tonight, but he's had a couple of good performances. He comes in against Jack Cartwright, and he lost, and everyone's saying, oh, is he that good? Then he puts on a great performance. Look at Mantikivi. They're saying, oh, Aries Mckeon got this easy guy, and look at Mantikivi tonight. He looks absolutely fantastic. So, you know, that's the way MMA works, and that's the way the world works. So, I don't know. I don't know. Did we get anywhere here, Graeme? But look, we're having a
I don't
conversation.
think we did. I think, yeah.
We just
It's a
went
difficult
around
one. It's a difficult
It
one.
is a difficult one. I think, like, the major point, I think, here is that there are conflicts everywhere in MMA because of the nature of it, you know? And, you even look at local fights here, and there's fucking lads judging fighters that they're in the same gym as, and things like that. And it can't not be done, if you want to put it that way. But look, we leave it at that. This podcast will go on for an hour. Graeme, thank you very much for joining me. Thanks everybody for listening. If you would like to sign up on our Patreon, patreon.com/Severe MMA Podcast. It's the very start of the month. We've loads of stuff coming. This week on Thursday, myself, Spencer, and Harry Powell have over an hour-long chat about media and different things like that. It's a very, very, very good chat, in-depth. So if you sign up, you'll get that there. Myself and Ian have the Chasing Pack back this Wednesday. Lots of stuff. Look ahead to Bellator Dublin. What we want to see on that card. We talk about the PFL tournament. We talk about absolutely loads more, 1FC and all of that. Loads of that stuff. The Q&A every Tuesday and loads more stuff like that. So sign up over there. For me, Sean Sheehan, for Graeme McDonald, we'll see you all next week, but only after Graeme gives us his quote for the week. Graeme, take it away.
This actually is a different band than a band that you'll know, and like, when there's nowhere else to run, is there room for one more song? One more song.
If you can't hold on, if you can't hold on, hold on.
That's especially for all the Man United fans struggling out there.
I wanna stand up. If you would like